You're listening to the Night Demon Network. Go to nightdemon.net/subscriber to unlock more exclusive content.
Hello and welcome to the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast. I'm your host, Nesbit, and this week we have another great interview. Jarvis recently sat down with Chris Black, the man behind High Spirits. This is the Chris Black interview.
All right, Chris Black.
Good morning.
Professor Black, and many of your monikers. But when you come out with High Spirits, you say, "My name is Chris."
Yeah, that's right. High Spirits has always been first names only, which is something that maybe hasn't gotten noticed by many people, but I've never once used Chris Black, Professor Black, any of those other names other than just Chris.
So this is kind of one of those Mandela effect things.
Explain that.
Do you know the Mandela effect? So like when Nelson Mandela went to prison, I think he was in prison for over 20 years.
Something like that.
Everybody thought, it was widely known that he died in prison. But he never did die.
Right, he came out.
Yeah. So, like, it was a weird thing when he came out. It was just like, I don't know how, like, it just became a thing of, like, a rumor in the collective consciousness.
Right.
So, like, the same thing happens, like, you know the Berenstain Bears books?
Yeah, sure.
Like, anytime anybody spells it, it's not, if you really look at it.
It's not stained.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
So they call that the Mandela effect, where, like, the collective consciousness believes something.
Right.
So everybody, I mean, even myself, was like, it's Chris Black from High Spirits,
Sure.
but that's never actually been printed on a record.
And that's correct. I mean, It is me.
Yeah.
You know what I
but
mean?
That's never been on an album.
But it's always just been first names on an album, even down to you know, when an artist or a or a mixing engineer is credited, it's first names only. And sometimes people, you know, in the internet databases, like, you know, Discogs and Metal Archives, and sometimes, you know, it says mixed by Matt, and somebody kind of just took a wild guess at which Matt from my circle that might be, and it's not always correct. But
the trolls will never stop, man.
Well, you know, on one hand, yes, it's annoying when something is incorrect that's out there, but it's also a good reminder to me and to everybody else that there is so much stuff on the internet that is incorrect, and if that includes me and my stuff, that's not really a big deal.
I guess it's a reminder too that somebody cares enough to do it,
right?
And which is validating. Just like when you see a bootleg, you're like, damn.
Yeah, mixed feelings.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
You know, but at the same time, you're like, okay, that's like somebody cares enough that this is financially viable for them.
Right.
Right? You know?
Right. That's just, but, you know, just ask. I'm going to say yes. Ask, though, you know.
But that's cool. Like,
but yeah, it's always been just first names. And that's just one of those kind of little, I don't want to say hang-ups, but one of those little things that has always been consistent within High Spirits, that just it's just a tiny little detail. You know, it's mostly for my own kind of satisfaction or whatever that it's done that way, and that it's carried on, you know, over time, and you know we've stuck to it. But it's also not really important at the same time.
Well, I could.
It's the totality of those little things that's important. It's not the little things themselves.
As a fan, I guess I could agree with that, because when you talk about consistency, right? You had a logo change.
Yeah, we've changed the logo, at least as far as the album covers. It's never been the same twice. It's always been
Wait, really?
Well, it depends whether you count the.
Okay.
This is one of those existential high spirits questions of whether you count the demos as the first album, or whether you count Another Night as the first album.
Right.
Those two do have the same logo.
Right.
Since then, it's been different on each one.
Yeah, you're right. Now that I think about it, another Mandela effect, man. Yeah. So that's an interesting thing, and that's kind of a unique thing.
Yeah, and that was less intentional than the first names thing. That's just kind of the way it played out over time.
All right. Well, hang on. Let's just.
We're on a huge sidetrack
already.
Before we
get ahead of ourselves, let's just start just quickly at the beginning.
Yes.
Like, you don't need your whole life story, but you're from the Chicago area.
Mm-hmm.
No,
I was an East Coast kid. I was born in New Jersey.
Whereabouts?
We lived in a town called Scotch Plains, which is kind of like just outside the rim of what might be considered New York Metro. My dad worked for a company called Merck, a pharmaceutical company, which was in Rahway, New Jersey.
I spent every summer as a kid in this place called Wall Township near Point Pleasant.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It's kind of about an hour away from the city. But yeah, as a California kid, I had New Jersey summers.
That's weird.
I know it was. But so you're out there.
So yeah, we lived there till I was 10, and then we moved to Pennsylvania, kind of like the Philadelphia suburbs.
Right, cool.
And that was the 90s. So I was an 80s kid in New Jersey, a 90s teenager in Pennsylvania, and then after I graduated from college in the year 2000, that's when I moved to Chicago.
So you made the pilgrimage.
Well, I made part of it, yeah. Well, as far as my pilgrimage, yeah, I do feel like I'm where I'm going to stay now. It definitely feels like home.
But do you feel like, a lot's changed because of communications now.
Yes.
But do you feel like in order to do the things that you wanted to do creatively, you had to go to that place?
That's a good question.
To find the scene, to be able to go to concerts regularly, you know what I mean?
That's a good question. I don't know that I moved to Chicago to get the girl. The girl was moving to Chicago, and that's why I followed.
From your town? So you followed her?
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. I got the girl.
And that's your wife now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So that worked out.
Yeah.
That worked out better than I could have hoped.
Cool.
Yeah. We had the, house and two kids.
Yeah.
The whole thing. That's my lifestyle. 11 months a year. I'm a dad. But to answer your question, it's kind of hard to go back to that time and try to reimagine my mindset. But I definitely did feel limited for what I wanted to do creatively. I don't know that I was thinking of it as a profession by that time, or as a possible profession. I guess I was. I guess I was to the extent that you can kind of envision that realistically as somebody who's 21 or 22 years old. I knew I had already had kind of like an office job, like a cubicle job, a 9 to 5 during the summers and stuff. Like I had already. I was a good computer kid in high school, so I would actually. My part-time job, after school, my friends would go to their McDonald's job or go cut grass, and I would go over to this. It was like a financial annuities kind of company where I would unpack PCs. This was around 1995, 96. So a lot of companies were migrating from the old terminal mainframe style computers to actual desktop PCs, and if you knew your way around PCs, there was work to be had. So after high school, I would put on a shirt and tie and then go work for 3 hours at this financial company. So point being, I had a taste of that world already as a teenager. By the time I was 22, I was ready to try something else from that world. That door was open, obviously, but I was like, let's see what's going on here. So as I'm sitting here talking through it, thinking about it now, I was thinking professionally. However ill-formed that notion may have been. Yeah, I definitely knew that I didn't want the 9-to-5 thing.
Right.
And sitting here thinking about it, I definitely brought that with me.
That's cool.
To Chicago. I brought some other, strange ideas with me too, but
You want to elaborate on that, or?
Oh, I just mean like lifestyle stuff and like what might be sustainable in the long run that proved not to be.
Of course, but that's part of growing.
But you don't know. Yeah,
That's
exactly. You don't know. You have
and I'm
to.
sure, like you having kids now, they're pretty young, and I mean, right?
Medium, 9 and 14 right now. So yeah.
But still, I mean, it's kind of like with our parents' generation. It was like you got married pretty young. You kind of had to decide what you wanted to do right away, and
because in a lot of cases that's what you would do for 50 years.
Sure,
and people did
and
not
now,
move around professions the way they do now.
Yeah, and now we realize, like, there's a gestation period, like, of adulthood, where you really have to go out and try a bunch of things,
Right.
and figure out who it is. Like, we don't know who we are when we're 18.
Right.
We think
We might think so.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's funny that later in life, the things that we loved when we were in our teenage years, they come back to us in waves, in amazing ways.
It's true.
And it's like, wow, we did know who we were the whole time, and then had this kind of shadow career of like,
Right.
let's do the right thing. And when you have kids, you kind of like you want them to have enough discipline to go out and do it, but you also want to, it's probably a fine line, right, of like, let them be free, let them explore, but also, like
Be
really,
smart about it.
Be
smart
go
about
out and give some effort, because that's the thing that I've realized. Like, you could be successful at anything if you have the drive.
Motivation is the secret ingredient.
Yeah,
that and salt. Motivation and salt are the two secret ingredients.
Stay hydrated.
Yeah.
So, do you remember the first record you bought, like with your own money?
The first record I bought with my own money was Girls, Girls, Girls by Motley Crue,
Okay.
and I thought it sucked.
Really?
And I gave it away. I paid $10 for it, and I tried to sell it to somebody for $10.
What format did you buy on cassette?
Cassette, yeah.
What made you buy that record?
I don't honestly remember, but I can remember. Well, actually, no, I can't remember where I bought it. Some of the other early purchases, I have kind of vivid memories of. But yeah, that one, I don't know. I had already the more important to me memory was during the summer staying with my grandparents for a couple weeks in southern Ohio, kind of near the West Virginia. Not far from Cincinnati, kind of near the West Virginia border. Going to the public library and getting somewhere in time, and my grandfather transferred that. It was Somewhere in Time LP at the library, and my grandfather put that on,
Amazing.
on a
that was the
cassette for
first
me.
Maiden I heard too.
Yeah, it was
very first.
Yeah, it'll probably be the last too. Yeah. Right. But so I still have that cassette with like my scribbled like song titles, and I think I was 9. I used to believe that I was 8, but as I've kind of pieced together. As I've told the story and thought about it over the years, I think I was actually 9.
Okay.
And I think it was shortly after that, and I don't know what it was that connected from there to Motley Crue, or how, like, that's a little more vague. But yeah, I
mean, were you like an MTV kid?
No, we didn't have MTV in my house growing up.
I
was
you didn't have cable television.
We didn't have cable. Okay. Yeah, so this is still 80s. Yeah, I was an 80s kid, 90s teenager.
Right. So for me, like, MTV was like on 24/7, whether I liked what was on or not.
Yeah.
Like MTV News, it was like, that's, if I didn't have, I used to buy all the mags and stuff.
Sure,
like,
that was more my.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm talking like Rip Magazine, Metal Edge. I used to get old copies of Sounds and Kerrang, but I had to go to the record store to get those.
Right.
But really, MTV was just kind of like, I wanted to know, like, what's happening with Van Halen. You know what I mean? But that's interesting, because like that would have been my assumption about, like, getting the Motley Crue record.
Like I said, I don't know what led me to that. I do know that when I put it on, this was not the sound I was looking for. Sorry, try again.
But you already had an idea in your mind, right? Like you.
That helped form the idea. That was kind of one piece of the puzzle of like, okay, Iron Maiden. Yes, this is this is for me, Motley Crue, this is not.
But so
you know
you
what
had
I mean?
already
So I'm
heard Maiden by then.
I think I had already had the Somewhere in Time record by then.
That makes a lot of sense.
I'm pretty sure that came first, and then the Motley Crue.
God, we have such a similar experience. That's so weird, man.
Yeah.
That is so weird. I have a video of me and my best friend. We were maybe, like 8 or 9 years old with our dad's guitars. We didn't know how to play yet.
Doesn't matter.
But we were miming to Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner. He's like,
awesome.
My dad has this song on tape, and I don't know, and that was the only track that I heard.
That's
but
cool.
we were like, this, just, hearing
That's
it,
the first one that I heard because I played side B first
Come
without realizing.
on, dude!
Yeah.
How is that's so weird?
You hear that voice,
Exactly.
and my cousin, who's about my age, she was staying with my grandparents that summer too, and she was like, she heard that voice, she was like, I don't know about this, man. And I was like, well. Like, I'm in.
No, yeah, I wanted to sound like that, and when
I'm
I
in.
couldn't, I wanted to find a guy like that.
Right on. Yeah, in New Jersey, when I still lived in New Jersey, so this is before I turned, this was like late 80s, on clear nights, on my radio that I had in my bedroom, I had a little like radio cassette player combo thing. On clear nights, I could get WSOU.
Yeah. Which is, by the way, for people who don't know, is like one of the biggest college radio stations for metal in the country, probably the biggest.
Historically, anyway.
Yeah, well, still to this day,
Yeah.
but like it's owned by a Catholic university, so there's a lot of stuff that they will not play on there, which
Really?
is hilarious.
That's
because
funny.
there's the stuff that gets through the cracks. You're like, this is what you
Right.
know what I mean, right? So
Yeah, so on clear nights, I could listen to that, and I have vague memories of certain things I heard. I know I heard "Eat the Rich" by Motorhead on there. I remember hearing, I don't know is it the Warlock song, When East Meets West?
When East Meets West.
I didn't know at the time that was Warlock. I found out like 20 years later, but I remember hearing the song as a little kid. A few other things. There was a killer instrumental song that I managed to get on tape, a tape that I no longer have, and I never was able to find out what it was. I think there's a good chance it was Labyrinth by, which is on the first Living Death album.
So it was a current track at the time.
Current at the time, or semi-current.
Okay.
I have a hunch that it was Labyrinth by Living Death. I'll never know for sure. But that was rare, that the conditions, that the skies were clear, because we were like just on the rim of whatever their broadcast radius was. So, I would try to get 89.5. But then that's, like I said, that's as a little kid. When I moved to Pennsylvania in 1988, I was 10, went into 5th grade there, and there I met another kid who became my best friend, who had an older brother, whose older brother had metal friends, and then it just exploded. They had all the sounds that we were looking for, and that was like a huge level up for me. Yeah,
the friend with the older brother.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that was key.
I was the oldest in my family, so I didn't have a brother, but yeah, I had the same experience. My buddy, two of my friends actually, they had older brothers, and they were into all the cool shit, and like, just
and that's
like,
a powerful force.
Oh, it's amazing, especially because you kind of like, I kind of looked up to those guys anyway. You know what I mean? So, like, I'm glad that they had the music that they did, because whatever they did have, I would have been.
That's what you would have ended up being into. Right. And then when we got to middle school, and we had, we were getting allowances from our parents, and like, so now we're, early. Now we're say we're like 12, 13 years old or whatever, and we'd go to the mall and spend our money on tapes. And we had the one friend who would buy 3, and then he'd have like 5 stuck down his pants that he was walking out with too. So that was another just like huge, because by then our group was like, there was like kind of 4 of us in our group. Right. So,
but no band out of that.
No, we had a band.
Okay,
it wasn't serious though.
But still,
it wasn't serious, and it never like, there was never any continuity to it. It was like, okay, one week this guy's playing drums, and the next week he's playing guitar, and nobody knows any songs.
Did any of those guys go on to do anything, or like musically?
Of those 4. 2 of them I wouldn't know.
Right.
I don't think so. At least by high school, not. At least by high school, they'd kind of wandered up. And one of them is like a fine arts painter.
Okay. Cool.
So he's had a lot of creative success, though not musically.
So in this era, right? Or so in this age, you guys are pretty much metal kids.
Pretty much, in as much as you can be a metal kid. By now, it's the early '90s.
Right.
So we're like that version.
I was there.
Like, it was weird because, like I said, we were going to the mall and buying tapes, and we don't have a concept of the time of things. We don't have any frame of reference for like Venom black metal would be on the shelf. Okay, we buy that. Right next to Scream Bloody Gore, right next to whatever the newest Obituary is, and like Motorhead. I mean, we're just kind of like we're like hoovering up all of this stuff that's from a, honestly, like, and even like Black Sabbath and the earlier Maiden albums. Like, it's this stuff that's come out over a period of, at that point, more than 10 years.
Yeah.
But we didn't really, like, it was kind of all equal to us, because we were discovering it for ourselves. Like, we didn't have anybody saying, like, okay,
that's so great.
This is, this is the earliest stuff. Like, you buy a licensed. My first Motorhead album was Bomber, and I got it on cassette. Mm-hmm. Bomber came out in 1979.
Right.
But the version that I got on cassette was later, licensed release that said copyright 1988 on it.
Right.
So I think it came out in 1988.
Right.
I think Bomber's 3 years old when I bought it, which is, it's not. It's 13 years old. So it takes a long time. Obviously, standard disclaimer, pre-internet, all that stuff. Can't even imagine of a resource like that at that time. So we were really piecing together like Venom and Obituary. They're completely different generationally, but again, to us, like, they're on the shelf at the same time. But we're coming home from the store with them on the same day.
But could you tell, like, just fidelity-wise or sonically, like, hey, this sounds like it was recorded before, or is this just a bad recording of the time? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if we were hearing those kinds of things about it. I think we were like, When
I heard the Black Album, like, it ruined, like, a lot of music for me for years.
Dude, I remember the moment I heard that album.
If it didn't sound like that, I was like, this is junk.
Oh, really?
Because
I heard that album and thought, this is junk.
Well, I mean...
I remember the moment driving back from Red Lobster with my other friend, and his mom, took us out to Red Lobster and then took us over to the mall so he could buy that tape, and we popped it in on the way back, and I was like, nope.
Well,
see you later, Metallica.
It was just the sound of it.
Oh, it sounds awesome.
It sounds
awesome.
Not necessarily
not the songwriting
content.
Yeah.
Because my first show was Monsters of Rock '88.
Okay.
So I saw them and knew what I wanted to do with my life.
Right on.
Right. And then picked up some drums and a guitar. I started on drums, and I was like, and Justice for All. But still to this day, I mean, even last week I listened to it, and I'm like, this album sounds like shit. Like, I really don't like listening to it. It's just not just the fact that there's no bass. I mean, it's just like, come on, Yeah. But so when I heard the Black Album, it can ruin, like, a lot of the older stuff that I discovered after, like, right around that period. I was just like, like, it wasn't.
It just sounds so harsh.
Listenable. My ears weren't mature yet, you know. And that album just sonically took me to this other level, like a Dr. Feelgood or something like that, where it's like,
Right.
But anyway, so
as kids, I don't know that we were really. I mean, we had a concept of production and, like, this sounds, like, whatever, this Necrosanct album sounds like a bucket full of rocks compared to
Right.
this Metallica album
Yeah.
or, you know, South of Heaven or something
Right.
that like is obviously
Yeah,
a
well-
different sound. But I don't know, you know, how we were analyzing that. We would pay attention to lyrics. We were interested in album covers. We were interested in labels. We used to
Yeah,
joke that our one
right.
friend Matt, like if it's on Century Media, he's going to buy it. And if you see something that you're interested in on Century Media, don't buy it because Matt will,
Okay.
and you'll be able to borrow it from him and check it out.
Well,
So-
Matt, Night Demon is on Century Media.
Yeah, no,
now
Matt
for
was
10 years, so.
Matt was on the pulse. Yeah.
So it's interesting because, like, you know, so we're back in the days of pre-internet, early discovery. You're buying records, a lot of them based on the imagery, right? So, like,
Yeah.
which we all did. But it's interesting to me because with the stuff that you've mentioned, like, you're listening to like death metal.
Oh, sure,
and,
yeah.
You know, and so those lines are not blurred at all at this point.
Like
And-
I said, we didn't have a sense of the divisions,
Yeah.
and we didn't have a sense of. And it's also true. I was going to say we didn't have a sense of the timeline of things, but
Yeah.
it's also true that a lot of those genre terms were pretty elastic, and those
Sure.
boundaries have changed
Oh,
a lot
God. Oh,
over
God.
time.
Yeah.
I mean, Bathory was power metal,
Yeah.
and Merciful
Yeah.
Fate was black metal.
Right.
So you know those. They were a little more defined by then.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously,
right.
death metal. As soon as the vocal thing happened for death metal, that became a little more of a clear distinction,
Right.
And the guitar sound too. Even in the early '90s, it was kind of like, is this thrash metal? Is this death metal? I don't know. It's like,
Yeah.
do you like it? Does it kick ass? Okay.
That's exactly how I felt. I had a much more mainstream approach,
Mm-hmm.
like in the varied taste, you know, it was like Metallica, AC/DC,
Mm-hmm.
Van Halen, Slayer. Like I liked it all, Scorpions, you know. Which is again a much more mainstream approach. I had some friends that were into death metal, but it didn't grab me right away.
Yeah.
It was like I was so much more into the melodic sense and, you know, guitar harmonies and stuff. But
and I really was too.
yeah, but
Ultimately.
so yeah, that's what I want to ask. Would you say that, like, out of all that, like, you had nobody talking into your ear going, "Oh, this is gay," you know, like this is what, you know what I
Yeah.
mean, right? Like which you would say then in those days, you
Yeah,
know?
unfortunately,
yeah. But I mean, you know, was there a specific thing that you gravitated towards more, whether it was like a classic Motorhead sound, or you equally liked everything the same?
No, I definitely didn't like everything equally.
Stylistically, I mean, not bands.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, I was open to. Let's see how to answer. I decided pretty early on that Motorhead was going to be my favorite band. There was something about Motorhead that made me say, like, these are my guys. I'm all in for the duration, and I think I made a pretty good choice.
Now, was that musically, or was that more of just the
It was
imagery,
musically.
the ethos of the band?
It was musically, but it was more than that too. It was kind of their like.
And did that start at Bomber?
It started with the song Iron Fist.
Great.
And then it went to the Bomber album, which honestly I really only liked 4 songs off of at first.
Okay.
Like, which is like the opener and closer on both sides. I think those are the 4. I love the whole thing now, but like those are the 4 songs.
I mean, that just comes with age when you run out of material from your favorite bands. Like I the only Kiss I listen to now is like, you know, Animalize, Hot in the Shade. Like I've burnt myself out on the classics, you know.
So I moved on from Bomber. Then I got No Sleep Till Hammersmith after that, and then it was like, oh, okay, here we go, and there was no turning back.
So are you
that.
a fan of the live album? I gotta ask, like in general, the live.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, okay.
Totally.
Because that's totally my thing too.
Yeah.
Like it's what got me, what really drove me to do this in my life.
Cool.
Hearing live albums.
Yeah,
you know?
I do like live albums, and I also kind of have a soft spot, especially when it comes to Motorhead, for like the. You know, like the tape recorder down the pants, like audience bootleg.
Oh,
like,
yeah, of
like
course.
there's something about that that's
Of
like
course.
kind of hard to resist.
I one of my biggest regrets in the career of Night Demon is we wrote the song on our first full length, the song Full Speed Ahead. I wrote it for Lemmy for him to sing on. I sang on an album with Lemmy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, we were on 2 different tracks. This hardcore band called the Warriors that I was friends with.
Oh,
and
weird.
I was friends with Cameron Webb, who was doing their later records. So I ended up in the studio, and Lemmy's there, and like he was great, man. They just picked him up at the Rainbow. He showed up. And they told him what to sing. He did it, and all he wanted for payment was a Jack and Coke. Like seriously, I mean, he was super. And I run into him a bunch back in the day. When I was a kid, he was at shows constantly in Hollywood.
Yeah,
he was a very, very cool dude.
Yeah.
Always cool. You know?
I only met him once, and he was super
amazing.
cool. Yeah.
But I wrote that song about the D-Day invasion, and I thought, this is right up. And it kind of had a Motorheady meets Maiden kind of thing, and so. We were this close to getting him on the record. And I go, you know what? I'm going to commit to this. And he got real sick right around that point. And we just kept putting it off. And eventually it was too late.
You can't do it. Yeah.
But I'm in hindsight, I'm glad everything works out for a reason.
Sure.
And I'm glad I wrote the song the way I did. It would have been way shittier if it would have been about something else I was singing about at the time. You know, It's not an Evil in Darkness kind of song.
Gotcha.
But so along the lines of that. I always wanted to know this about you. Now that I have a context of your musical upbringing, the origins, where do you stand on punk rock?
I had a conversation yesterday at the festival. Somebody was pointing to a particular Superchrist song and said that it reminded them of a particular Bad Religion song.
Okay.
And I said, I'll take that because I do 2 punk bands.
Okay.
I do Bad Religion up to Against the Grain, Hard Stop after Against the Grain, and Misfits with Glenn.
Okay. So all Misfits with Glenn up to 83, up to Earth AD.
Yeah. Okay. Earth AD is my favorite.
Yeah.
But I'll do the rest too. And so this is what I was telling the person I was talking to at the fest. I said, so I'll take the Bad Religion thing, but I said, but that's it. And I said, well,
would you take a song or two here or there after Against the Grain?
Not on purpose.
Okay.
No, but then I stopped myself. I said, well, if you consider Turbo Negro a punk band, then
they're a rock and roll band.
To me, they're a rock and roll band. Yeah. But I mean, Ass Cobra and earlier is pretty punk too, and I'm totally in awe of Turbo Negro. And then the guy said, well, what about Zeke? And I said, okay, so it is more than 2 punk bands.
Okay.
Generally, that's not my world, musically or,
or what?
Culturally.
I would disagree.
Okay.
I would disagree, and we'll get into that. In a way, I would disagree. I'm not, obviously, you know yourself.
But I have hang-ups, too. So and as I've gotten older, I'm more open to pointing out those things about myself or having them pointed out. Be like, that's a hang-up. That's something. That's an adolescent hang-up that I can let go of, maybe. So,
it's like comedy, right? If you can't laugh at yourself, don't make jokes about anybody.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, wait, where am I going with this? So when you're a teenager with your friends, are you guys going to concerts?
No, for a few reasons. We were way out in the suburbs.
Right.
There were not really concerts to go to. As we got a little older and got our driver's licenses, now we're in the late 90s,
right.
Philadelphia was the nearest city, and there was a period of skinhead, neo white power people fucking up metal shows.
Right.
It became a liability for promoters and for booking agencies, and they routed a lot of tours around Philly for that reason. So it's kind of like, I mean, I may be over exaggerating the scope of the problem, but a lot of tours, it seemed like if we wanted to see it, we'd have to go to Baltimore, we'd have to go to DC, we'd have to go to New York, and that.
That's a mission.
Yeah. So no, I didn't really start going to a lot of shows till I moved to Chicago, and then it was like I was going to 3 shows a week and just burning myself out, and then I realized, that band's going to play here again in 6 months.
Right.
I don't have to go to every single show.
So you never grew up going to punk shows or DIY shows or other high school bands in high school that you?
No, metal and music was a solitary experience for me, and I think that does inform a lot of what I've done creatively.
I could agree with that, and I could see that now.
Yeah, it was always it didn't become a collective experience for me until much later.
But so Against the Grain, Generator,
No Control,
Suffer.
Oh
God, I mean, what like?
It's probably a toss-up between Suffer and No Control.
When I heard Suffer, I was like, you could do this in 27 minutes. You can be the hardest band with the hardest melody. You can.
Yep.
Pete Feinstone, the drummer on those records, is a buddy of ours. He's from the same town as us.
Oh, yeah.
And every time I see him, I'm just always like, man, or like the I don't know if you've ever seen the video of like the riot. That riot in LA, it's fucking great, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Like at a show. Yeah, it's on the YouTube now.
Yeah.
I could probably do without the first EP. The single, the 7-inch.
Yeah, I don't know if I know which one it is.
It's you could skip it.
Okay.
But all right, so okay, let's just jump. I mean, dude, I could talk to you for hours. I know there's a lot of musical projects and your musical evolution, but I just want to jump right into High Spirits.
Sure.
Okay. So, how old are you when you write the first High Spirits stuff? Well, like when you write and record it.
2009, so I'm 31.
So 31, amazing.
Yeah.
I was 31 when I did the first 19 minutes.
That's cool. Lemmy was 30 on the first Motorhead.
There is supposedly this is, well, I don't want to say it's science-backed, but there are studies out there that say that the creative height of a male is between the ages of 19 and 28.
Huh.
And I mean, they'll break shit down, like especially musically, okay, or things like Albert Einstein was 26 when he came.
Yeah, or like classical composers and stuff. I mean, is that where they're getting their data from? Okay,
but at the same time, you have guys like Beethoven who, the final thing he wrote when he was completely deaf is just absolutely genius.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's a fucking epic, right? But when I was 31. All of my friends that I grew up with, we were playing in bands since we were 14. Like this is who we were. This is what we wanted to do. They were all like, "All right, it's time to get a real job."
Right.
And I was faced with that, and I had to just say, "All right, this is it. Fuck it. Like I'm going for broke. I don't care if if I alienate everybody. If I end up in the gutter, at least I know I tried. I cannot have this monkey on my back anymore." So I really just put it all in, and I sit here today thankful that I did it. It was fucking hard.
Sure.
The first 5 years were really rough. Like I didn't have a place to live, anything.
Yeah.
But like your output has been magnificent since the first thing you put out, and it was High Spirits, Enforcer, and Midnight Chaser from the Bay Area, which we found you guys first before any other bands like of our generation, and that gave us the confidence to go out and do it because we were like, because we were an hour, you've been to Ventura, we're an hour north of LA,
yeah,
but the way that we grew up without the internet, like we might as well have been 5,000 miles from LA,
right? Without
a car, without any connections, and we felt like we were completely isolated. Probably how you felt in growing up in New Jersey, and and the only other metal band ever from our town was Sirathungal. By that time, they had broken up.
Right, they were completely. There was a void. Yeah.
You could find for $500, you could probably get an original pressing of Frost and Fire on eBay. At that time, there were about 10 in each dollar bin at a thrift store.
Right.
And we hated it. We hated it. We're like, this sound the Black Album tainted. Right. We're like, this is garbage. Like what? How does this sound? But my ears hadn't matured yet. Now I cry when I hear it.
Oh, Frost and Fire is awesome.
But we went out and just decided that we were going to do this. And so I feel like, I don't know, our generation's weird. Like, I feel like maybe we mature a little later now. I mean, do you feel like since people are living longer, or like, our
It
heroes?
could be they need to correct that for. I was going to say when you shared that finding or statistic or whatever about male creativity in their 20s, I just wondered if it needs to be corrected for human life expectancy.
Could be.
If it's the same curve, just
Could be
over a longer lifetime, like the first half of the middle third. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I agree. Like it's a 3-act structure,
right? And it's the beginning of the second act where the good stuff is.
Yeah. Or I wonder too, also if it's like if you peak early, it's just because from a popularity standpoint.
Sure.
So like
right, and there's all kinds of measures for
right.
Yeah.
But I mean, look at all the bands we love.
Right.
You know what I mean? And like you could look at the meat of a band's career, and it's like I have a theory. It's the first 4 or 5 albums versus the first 10 years.
Okay.
Right? So like if Maiden or bands back in the day put out an album a year. So it's
right.
like the first 10 years versus the first 4 or 5 releases. And I could look at my top 10 favorite bands of all time and go, yeah, that's accurate.
Yeah.
It
really depends. But
it does. But if you're, at least like those albums are like they hit you immediately.
Right.
They're not growers.
Right. Right. Well, there's certain bands though that like the first 3 or 4 I don't really feel like I need. Running Wild didn't kick in until maybe album
right
3 or 4 for me.
So you like the pirate metal records?
Oh, I love it.
Okay.
I love it. Yeah. Death or Glory is one of my favorite albums of all time. I'll go back to that, once a month until I die probably.
Okay.
I like Black Hand In. I'm big on that one too. Black Hand In. But Death or Glory, that's not just the best Running Wild album. That's one of the best.
Okay.
Like that's like a Show No Mercy. Like that's canon for the genre, not just for them. Blind Guardian's another one that I think like their late early stuff is probably their strongest. Like the first 2 albums, but it's like albums 3, 4, 5 is where it starts getting really interesting.
I gotta say, we just supported them.
Oh yeah, you did. Yeah,
and got on with them great. And that was one of those tours that we actually turned down at first.
Oh really?
And they came back and said, "Look, we really want you guys," and you'd be the only other band on the tour. And we're like, okay. I mean, for us, we thought like we're gonna get crucified out there.
No, I wouldn't imagine that
with what we were doing, and like, well, with a band like that has such hardcore fans that
but they're not mean.
No, they're not. They're not.
Yeah.
And it was the best tour we've ever done to date. And I'll tell you why. It was nice to be out of the scene.
Yeah. Sure, play to new people.
Oh my, but people, it's like, it was just like concert goers. It wasn't like scene kids.
Yeah.
And I was like, everybody was so open-minded. Even if they had elf ears on. Like
that band has a very special fan base. We would love to play with them.
Well, so that's going to come to one of my questions here. But so back to High Spirits. You're writing this. You're writing this record. You're putting this out. You're doing everything by yourself, right?
At first, I was for about 6 to 8 months.
But on the albums, it's all you.
The albums, that has remained true on the albums.
Right,
yes.
right. So you're writing these songs. You're recording them in your home studio, probably, right?
Yeah. Early on, I did some stuff at other studios.
What's the songwriting process like? Is it always the same? Do you have a formula?
Yes and no.
Probably just like all of us, a riff comes into your head, a melody, riff.
It's usually usually either a riff or a melody. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's words. Sometimes it's like an actual like line of a chorus.
Right.
Which
I love about
like the song "One Day Closer" on the new album. Like that was the first piece of that song was like, is it one day closer to paradise or one day closer to hell? That like kind of sticks with you, and that's like
I mean,
10 years ago.
I mean, lyrically, you've always knocked it out of the park.
Oh, thank you.
It's really great.
Thank you.
But even like, you know, on your hit, you know,
Yeah.
Another Night in the City. Yeah, I love how that, like, it starts with the chorus, but
Right.
you know, like, right? I mean,
Well, it starts with the verse. It starts with, like, the quiet verse. When it kicks in, it kicks in on a chorus.
It starts with the verse, but it's great. Just the guitar and the vocal.
Thank you.
You know,
Yeah,
just right in. You're right there, you know?
Another night in the city, yeah. Getting high in the dark tonight. Another night in the city, yeah. Sky high, electric light, street light shadows. Move like a mist.
Well, you have many hits, I think, you know.
That's the big one.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but there are some. I think you have like 5 to 8 number twos.
I think of it as having about 5 to 8 always play songs, and then
Which is tough when you get a bigger discography.
it is, which is why I've thought about kind of slowing that down.
First 5 versus first 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, look, even with us, like we. I don't think we're going to do more than 5.
Yeah.
We're on 3 now.
I thought you were on 4.
Well, the EP, I guess, would be 1 because
It's the same thing with, yeah.
We didn't re-record any songs.
Okay.
We did what most bands don't do. We did like a Queensryche, right?
Yeah.
Which is fine, I guess. Yeah, so I guess you could consider it 4.
Okay. Yeah. it
But
depends,
it's
too.
weird how EPs get lost in the mix.
They do. Yeah.
It's criminal.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Well,
no, really.
It depends
really.
on the EP.
Yeah, no. Listen, our EP is probably still one of the most popular things ever.
Yeah.
I mean, even in a 30-minute set, we're touring with King Diamond. We're playing 3 of the 4 songs.
Play 3 of those?
Yeah. Oh,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like you know, to us, yeah, it is our first record, right? But like, just publicly, it's amazing how people will not credit it
That's weird.
because you know our first full-length album is everybody's just like that's the debut, that's
Right,
this, you know.
right.
The fans obviously know, but the press, they won't cover EPs.
Oh,
like,
that's true.
if you know, but anyway, so
Yeah, the songwriting process you had asked about. It's basically the same, like
yeah,
give or take. You know, I have that proverbial riff tape, which is
Right.
actually just like a 3-hour sound file on my computer.
Wow, that's tough.
Well, it's like 10 years
You
worth
have to
of
go
riffs
edit.
and shit.
I mean,
Yeah,
you
I mean,
really
I
have
label
to.
everything
Okay.
as I do it, so
Okay.
I can go back and kind of see. And you know, obviously, not all of that ends up in high spirits. Not everything that starts as high spirits ends as
Yeah.
high spirits, and vice versa. A lot of things end up there that it was like, oh, I didn't realize this was a high
Right.
spirit song, but it actually is. So when it's time to write an album, which, you know, I've gotten a lot looser about timelines and deadlines because
Absolutely.
we're fortunate that our record company situation does not entail any deadlines or, you know, expectations for when we're going to deliver records. It took me a little while to kind of take advantage of that and like relax a little bit and be like, all right, I can just work on this when I'm in the mood to work on this.
Yeah.
And I think that was something, particularly with the last record, with Safe on the Other Side.
Mm-hmm.
It took a year start to finish, but part of the reason was that I only sat down to work on it when I felt like it.
Right.
Otherwise, you know what, I'm just going to wait. I'm going to wait for that tide to come back in, you know, whether it comes back in for a week or, you know, like a 2-week chunk. But yeah, the writing process is basically I make a demo, you know, I make a drum machine demo and, you know, experiment with everything usually. You know, is this song in the best key signature that it can be in? Like, do I want the double chorus at the end? Do I want to, I mean, that's one of my tricks, you know, skip the first chorus and put a double chorus at the end. You know, is this where we do one of the big,
I never noticed that formula. Skip the first chorus.
skip the first and put a double at the end. Yeah, I do that with a bunch.
Yeah.
That's one of my things. And sometimes after the solo, we don't go back for the third verse. Sometimes after the solo, we just hit the chorus instead.
Right.
It varies, but there are certain like templates that seem to like
I never
seem to like
realized that. Yeah, that's great.
repeat.
Oh, I'm stealing some of these ideas.
Yeah, they weren't my ideas to begin with. So.
But yeah, it's interesting, taking the time. I feel it's like that's another fine line. Like, we have many favorite bands that you can tell when they were rushed to make a record. At the same time, I feel like when you feed the beast, like the muse will step in. Like there's something to be
Sometimes
said.
that's the case.
Like if you're there working, like, and you commit to it, like magic will happen.
Yeah.
And
right. And you get that momentum.
You have to sit down and do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Sometimes starting up the machine is
the hardest part.
Yeah, but keeping it running.
Yeah.
We did. I was almost done with. I had tracked most of the vocals for Safe on the Other Side.
Yeah.
Had to stop because we went on tour it was a short tour, it was like a week and a half, but I couldn't finish. My voice was in great shape for the tour because I stopped with the recording stuff and I had to start practicing the set for the tour. So I went from tracking vocals every day to practicing for the tour every day to doing the tour. And then when I came back, my voice was like the absolute best condition that it had ever been. And so I tracked the last 2 songs for the record, and they sounded so much better than the other 8 songs sounded. And I was like, God damn it, I guess I'm doing them all again.
Yeah?
And I did.
Great.
And it was worth it. It took another week and a half, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was totally worth it. And like I said, it kind of took me a little while to get used to that way of thinking.
Yeah.
Like, no, this has to be finished as, I'd set these deadlines for myself.
I mean, that's important, personal deadlines.
It used to be important, yeah.
It's not a bad practice.
No.
Because it's like...
But it's gotten me into trouble a couple of times.
Yeah.
And like I said, now I've kind of swung around to the opposite way of thinking, like, it'll be done when it's done. The only pressure to deliver it comes from me.
But you don't want to get demo-itis or like the perfection.
And that's happened before,
where
too.
It's like, dude, it's a Chinese democracy. You know
and that's
what I mean?
happened before, too. Yeah.
And then it comes out and has no identity.
Right.
Sometimes I go back and listen to demos for like archival reasons, and then I go, dude, why didn't I do this on the album?
Right.
Like just one little fill,
Can be anything, yeah.
Like that's great. I got to start doing that live at least, you know. So, do you? I've always wondered this. Do you feel awkward on stage without an instrument?
I used to.
Yeah.
Yeah, not anymore.
Yeah, it's like it's so weird when you're the guy, you're the songwriter, and you're performing all the instruments on the record. When there's an instrumental break or a solo, it's like, what do I do?
Right. Kind of shuffle around a little. Yeah.
Do I have moves?
Yeah. Go mess with the drummer a little bit. Yeah.
Do you guys rehearse?
Yeah.
Because
a lot more than we used to.
Okay, let me ask you this. I noticed maybe within the last 2 years, you guys played your 100th show.
The 100th show, yeah, it was longer ago than that.
Okay.
It was in 20...
It was post-pandemic.
17, no, it was pre-pandemic.
Really?
Yeah.
God,
yeah, the 100th show,
shit.
I want to say, was in early 17.
Holy shit, really?
Yeah, so it would have been right after Frost and Fire. It was right after Frost and Fire.
I'm tripping.
Yeah, January 17th.
How many shows have you played to date?
We're still under 200, but we're closing in on it.
That's crazy to me because, like, you guys, and we're at 900.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like, we're like a drop in the bucket.
Than us.
Have we?
The band's been around. Yeah, we didn't start playing shows till like late 2012.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, like, I'm impressed. The live, I gotta say, it's been my favorite performance of the festival.
Oh,
here
thanks.
At Hell's Heroes. I absolutely loved it.
Cool. Yeah, we had fun.
But there's choreography in the live set that doesn't seem contrived.
Well, because it's not.
Okay,
it's kind of come up organically.
You guys are very in tune with each other then.
Yeah, we are.
Know what I mean?
Yeah. And we're in tune with the music too.
Yeah, right.
Because that's kind of what feeds it all.
Right.
Like there's something, I know, I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but like, I know when he's going to hit the crash cymbal.
Right.
I know when he's going to hit the other crash cymbal.
I know that, but there's like a lot more to it. There's stuff that happens on stage with all the band members.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
That are like, it seems like I mean, look, I've played enough shows that there's things that we do live now that seem contrived, like stage moves or whatever, but they did happen organically at one point
And
at
then
a
you
show.
keep, and then you keep doing it.
Yes. So that same thing?
Yeah, well, and early on, especially, it was like when we were just kind of figuring out how we wanted to present the band and how we did not want to present the band. After every show, I would kind of like, you know, how you like kind of play the tape back in your head, you know, when you're falling asleep at night or in the next morning, and be like, okay, there were 3 things that I did tonight that I want to try to remember to do, and there were 5 things that I did tonight that I want to try to remember to never do again, because I bet that looked dumb as hell.
Absolutely.
And you know, different people react to different things.
Yeah,
like,
but you know, like, you're your own best critic.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you're one of those guys that, like, I feel like when you take a band on stage, I mean, I've seen 3 different bands that you've done now. It is kind of the same motto that we have. It's like, you want to be the band that you want to see. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you want to do everything that you love about your favorite bands, and don't do anything that you hate about them. Because there's always something about our favorite bands that we don't like.
You're like, yeah, that's annoying. Yeah, like Phil Campbell chewing gum. Yeah.
Oh man, but you know what I mean, and I really respect that about you.
Thank you. Thank you. We try to not overthink it. I mean, because that's when when you can run into trouble, and maybe things get just like, I mean, it's not supposed to be a cartoon.
It's not.
You know what I mean?
Not at all.
We're still supposed to be like a hard rock and roll show.
Not at all.
You know, but also humble. I would say in the last few years, like, that's where maybe maybe I've been more sensitized to like we don't want to go up there and show off. We want to entertain.
Well, it looks like you're having a good time.
But we don't want to show off.
It looks like you're having a good time.
Yeah. We don't want to be. We don't want to, I don't know.
You don't want to. Okay, you don't want to take yourself too seriously, but you don't want to go out there and fucking just.
You don't want to be unserious. You don't want to be unserious either.
Yeah, you don't want to be a loose band, like just like, all right, like, I'm gonna, you know, we don't know how to segue into a new song. I'm just gonna have a sip of a beer, or you know, right. You know, you want to have a certain level of professionalism,
absolutely,
without coming across, you know. Sometimes I think we take ourselves too seriously. Like, we have a show now, but there's something about it that I do like. But and then sometimes I see you, and this is not a criticism at all, but I'm like, you know what? Like, I think if you did have a little more of, I don't know how to say it. Sometimes I think you're too humble, and sometimes I think. Well, I don't know. There is a certain respect that comes across where you're like, you and the audience are kind of one. You're treating it more like, I'm tripping over my words here. I don't want to say the wrong thing, because I'm not criticizing.
Don't worry about that.
I'm not criticizing you. You know what I'm saying? But like, sometimes I feel like you, maybe between a song, sometimes like you don't need to say a certain thing. Like, maybe it comes across as, I know you don't want to be a rock star and be above anybody else.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. No,
but you are on the stage.
That's true.
And you know what? You can look into that audience. I'll take just last night as an example, because it's the most recent in my memory. And everybody's singing all the words, man.
Totally.
You know? Okay. Yeah. And so these songs are no longer yours, they're theirs.
Absolutely.
But you are there performing it, and you are the maestro here. So there has to be some level of control that you have over this.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, like, for example, when you close with High Spirits, in my head, I'm like, okay, you address the audience in a very humble way, right? A non-commanding way.
Right.
And then you say you do the High Spirits thing a cappella, and then the band goes into the song. So the first thing that goes into my head, right, is I'm going, okay, I'm going to tell Chris, or like, what, I'm not going to tell him what to do, it's his band, but like, what would be cool is if he sang, you know, High Spirits, and then like had them do it, a call and response, and then sure enough, you fucking do it at the end of the song, and it was incredible.
Yeah.
And I go, yeah, that's why I need to shut my mouth and just let this guy do his own band, because he did it It did happen,
Yeah.
and he did it in a much better way than I would have told him how to do it.
Oh,
You know what I
thanks.
mean? So,
Yeah.
it's just...
Usually we play another song after that too. Usually
Yeah.
once the audience has
Yeah.
sang through their part of it, then like we were going to play the song "Thank You."
Yeah.
Is usually
Yeah,
our,
I love that track.
and I saw we had 2 minutes left, and it's a 4-minute song, and
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not gonna mess with the fest. I'm not gonna mess with Sadistic Intent. Getting their show on. So, and last night was our first show in over a year. So
That's
not
fucking mad to me. Dude.
not
Do you wish you
everything-
would play more?
sometimes I wish we would play less. I have very mixed feelings.
Less
about,
than now?
no, not less than
Okay.
once a year. But
Would you
I-
support a band that you love if they asked you to tour with them?
I would try to make it work.
Right.
Yeah.
I know logistically there's some issues.
No, they're surmountable.
Not issues.
They're surmountable
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
right conditions.
Right.
We have always, I should say, I shouldn't speak for the rest of the group. I have always preferred to represent us ourselves. Represent us myself.
Now this
excuse
is
me.
where the punk rock thing comes in. Like there's a
Operationally,
there's a handful
yes.
of bands from our generation that have successfully, at least on their own terms, managed to do this and make a living.
Yeah.
A modest living, but a honest living. And you're one of those guys. And I always wondered, is it a sense, does this go back to, if you think about it, like you're basically a one-man band, okay, from like the songwriting process to recording to releasing records. Yeah, you have a partner with Stefan and High Roller, but that's very loose. It's a handshake deal. It's a very DIY, trustworthy partnership. And if at any point you needed to step away and do something, you'd be allowed to do it pretty much. You probably, I don't want to get into the semantics of it because it's not the public's business, but like I'm sure there's some ownership of the masters and publishing that you have that a lot of labels would not give up, right?
That's absolutely true.
And you never know what's going to happen with your music. So like
That's true, and that's one of the reasons. That's certainly not the only reason, but that's absolutely one of the reasons that we're still with High Roller.
And I've known many people from the best, or I wouldn't say the best, but the most reputable, I guess more commercial metal labels that have approached you about a deal.
Mm-hmm.
How did you not bite on the carrot in front of your face, like in all those opportunities? What was the thing that, like, what was it, that, like, how are you so strong in that way, like to go with your whatever that gut feeling was? I mean, that takes a lot of discipline.
It does. Most of, and that's a good question.
No, but hold on, just you're growing up, you're looking at record labels on these albums, okay?
Right.
When that's put in front of your face, I mean, that for many of us, that's the dream. Just signing that and putting that label on your music. I mean, that's it. I've made it. I don't care. This comes out in a fucking store, all the stores, all the stores, and I'm a part of this legacy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Right? Like, how are you so strong to do it? Because I think that's a strong move. It's a strong move.
It was, and it has proven to be the right move for us because we've been able to be completely independent. Like I said, if I need a year to deliver an album, I have a year to deliver an album. But here's an answer you probably aren't expecting, and it relates to a black metal band that I was involved in just prior to High Spirits, who were very much the band that every label under the sun was trying to sign. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about 2006, 2007.
Okay.
And I was the guy. I wasn't a member of the band. I was kind of I helped them record albums. I did some songwriting. And I was the guy kind of in that circle who had not just the understanding of contracts and like that aspect of the business, but I also had the interest in it. So I was the guy, as these offers were coming in, I was kind of reading things over. You know, it wasn't my band to sign anything or not sign anything, but I was definitely in a position to
Consult.
see the offers that were coming in, say like, this looks good, this looks bad, try to ask for this, you know.
Right.
I read this music industry book a few years ago, and like every red flag that was in that.
The David Ellison book?
No, it was written some lawyer book, you know.
He wrote one, yeah.
Some lawyer book,
Yeah, right.
but it was like, you know, then this contract from, you know, the label X would come in. I'd be like, wow, it's like every single thing that book, every single way that book said they were going to try to fuck you is like right here in this contract. Like, I can't believe it. I was like, you know, I was like, you know, I'm not telling you what to say, but if it was me, I would tell this guy.
Yeah.
So I got to see. And this is just prior to High Spirits forming.
Right.
So I got to, and I don't really want to name the labels, but I got to see the standard contract from probably 5 different labels that you're thinking of when you asked me the question you asked.
We can imagine who they are.
So I already kind of knew what the give and take was, like how those deals were structured, what the bands were giving up, and I also knew that at least I had an intuitive sense that what was even more important than the contract was the relationship with the person on the other end, and that a lot would depend on
it all depends
the
on
amount of attention that, you know, that working relationship was gonna earn you, and what the give and take was going to be over time. So that band did end up signing. Once it got to the point that there were like actually 5 offers on the table, I was like, I'm a little bit out of my league here. We brought in like a professional, not an attorney, but you know, somebody who has more of a had been through it before. He wasn't just like he had read more than the one lawyer book. You know what I mean? He had some real experience working with those labels, and he knew who could be trusted. He knew who paid and who didn't, and signed a deal. They were happy with it. It was good. I mean, got good money. I got my own separate publishing deal out of that, which was cool. Like, I had my own separate advance and everything, because like I said, I did a lot of songwriting for the band too. That went really well for them. I mean, that's a whole separate podcast, how that played out over time. But so now we're at like 2008, like right before High Spirits forms. We do the demos in 2009, and even did a little bit of like that DIY kind of van touring stuff just on the demos record. And meanwhile, some other bands were starting to pop up and make noise. That label Heavy Artillery was starting to sign.
Yeah, look what happened to them. They were great until Eric bought them. And now those guys, those records won't even get released.
No comment, dude. Yeah. And I'm not saying we got an offer from Heavy Artillery, but I'm not saying we didn't either.
We did.
And I'm just saying, if we had gotten an offer from them, it would have been kind of bullshit and didn't really offer anything that we couldn't do ourselves, other than like giving our shit away to Earache 10 years later. I mean, I don't think I could have done that myself, so hats off. But you know what I mean? I don't want to badmouth anybody's thing, and certainly not.
That's not what it is.
You know, not make any other band regret.
That's not what it is.
Regret making their best choice at the time. You know, that's not.
I don't mind mentioning that label.
That's not what I'm here to do. But
I don't mind mentioning that label specifically, because I think a lot of people listening should actually go check out the bands that were on that label, because
they had great taste.
It was amazing.
They had great taste, and like I said, I'm not here to make any other bands regret, you know, choices they did or didn't make. But so we did the demos LP with on our own first, and then High Roller did a pressing of that, and offers were starting to come in, and nothing really, you know, it was kind of a range of things, but like nothing really knocked me out.
But there's been interest continuously through.
Not for a while, I think.
Okay, but they get the memo.
They've either gotten the memo or.
I'm talking like, you know, even up to the 3rd record. I know people have been asking me.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't heard anything for a long time.
He's changing his mind, folks. He's changing his mind.
I haven't heard anything for a long time, and you know,
but they know.
It would take a lot.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there's not an imaginary number or something like that, because Sure, but the thing with, I mean, I could break it down in so many different ways.
Right.
It's been such a good situation for us with High Roller.
Well, the cool thing is now it's like you have a catalog. So if that were to be something that you would do in the future, that you could do on your terms for maybe 1 or 2 records, like you at least know now. You know, you have something to lean on.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. And
so,
it's got a lot of, touring equity in it,
Of course.
But,
it's
built into
like
it.
If there was ever that scenario, it's kind of like, again, I hate to go back to the Black album, but like, like that comes out and that band's whole back catalog is now discovered by the world. Sure. And they're going like, how did I miss this gold?
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'd be in I would definitely have a lot to negotiate with if something like that was to happen. But I think it's unlikely at this point, especially as our ability to tour is maybe a little bit less than it was previously.
But the thing is this, what I really respect is that, like, if I had to do it all over again, I would. I'm not in your position. I'm in a good position.
Sure.
But a lot of it is built on my back on someone else's behalf. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's okay. Like, things have happened to us that you wouldn't believe. And recently. So, like, the horror stories you hear, that's never going to happen to us. We're not as big as Tom Petty or whatever.
Right.
It happens.
It does.
And it's soul crushing.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop you on the crusade, and you find ways to navigate it. But, at this point, I really respect you standing your ground on this. And, like, it's really, that to me is the punk rock DIY ethos. Like, that's where that comes from.
Yeah, I'll take that.
You know what I mean?
I'll take that.
So the spirit of punk rock, and even musically, I gotta say, with High Spirits, there is some of that raw energy to it, which I guess you could say Motorhead had to, but that's why I always wondered about the punk rock thing, because it comes back to just the way that you do things is very punk rock.
Operationally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's a big part of it, man. Like,
totally.
The managing of the business is, as much as people just want to be a guitar player, that's why they're still just a guitar player. Especially in this day and age, like, talent is so overrated, man. It really is.
No, it's true.
If you can write a song and you can manage your business, and be able to get it out there and then go out and do it live, even if you're doing it once a year, if you can put on the kind of show that you guys do, like, it's very strong,
That's cool.
And that is so fucking important.
Yeah.
So,
and it has our stubborn way of doing things our way, which is really my way, has insulated us from a lot of the like you said, the kind of like soul crushing things where, like, you're just on the wrong side of the power structure and you just kind of got to take it. And I'm trying to think of examples of things like that that we've experienced, because there have been a few where it's just like,
I can tell you some things off record that'll make you throw up.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay?
I'm sure you could.
but
and that's I don't want to belabor the point with a record company, High Roller, but that is a situation, as I've said, where we've been able to be independent, be kind of insulated from the typical, like, music industry horror stories, because they're relatively new. Their company began in 2003. Yeah. We were really one of the first, like, touring bands, as a new band.
Yeah, you were. I mean, they started out as a reissue label.
They did, and they've done amazing work
They're the best
in that area, like
imagine.
museum quality, industry standard, whatever you want to call it. Yeah,
and the content.
Exactly, and their taste.
It's not just like, this band's old. It's got to be good.
Right. No, they have very good taste, but so they're not a just for the sake of example, they're not a Century Media, they're not a Metal Blade, who have an established business model that has worked for them, and that is backed up by their standard contracts with artists, their long-standing relation, their media partners that they have over decades and decades, their distribution partners that they have. High Roller came in kind of from the outside, these guys weren't like band managers and lawyers.
Right.
These guys were record collectors who wanted to collect more
and again,
records.
that's when you talk about the partnership. Like, what's more important is the relationship on the other side of things.
And knowing that when whatever trend, whatever wave is dead and gone, they're still going to be committed.
And think about it this way.
They're still going to be exactly the same people they were when they started out.
And for them, what they're doing is they're targeting the exact audience High Spirits needs.
Exactly.
So, that's fine, because it's not broad appeal is wavering. Trends are wavering.
Yeah.
But for them to be able to get you to the audience that needs to hear you is very important.
Exactly.
So,
and they don't make us do anything we don't want to do.
And they put out our first EP, and they helped us a lot, when we were going to Europe for the first time. It was kind of that gave us that cred in that scene that we needed. And it's a beautiful thing.
No, they've done amazing work, and like I said, they haven't asked us to do anything we don't. Well, they've suggested things, and if we don't want to do them, they say fine, whatever. Like the lyric video. Do you guys want to do a lyric video for the new album? No. Okay, cool. We don't like them either.
Well, at least you get to play a cool anniversary bash in East Germany.
Dude, that was super fun.
I heard all about it.
That was so
I heard
fun.
All about it.
Did you see the video? And when we
I didn't see any video. No,
because we were on tour with Raven. It was the last.
Who took us on our first tour?
It was the last show of that tour. So that night was High Spirits, then Raven, and then we came back on with our Motorhead band, because me and John and Ian have a Motorhead band on the side. Very, very casual, Saturday morning jams and play a show once a year maybe. So just for that night after Raven, we came back on and did a Motorhead set, and then John and Mark Gallagher came on and did Overkill with us, which you can find on YouTube. It was pretty. My voice was totally roasted by then. All right, but no, it was more like all right. But it didn't matter, man. It was super fun.
We've only done Born to Be Wild with the Gallagher brothers. That was their suggestion.
I was writing out the changes for Overkill on a piece of paper backstage, and I gave it to John, and he looked at it, and he kind of looked at it, he's like, "What's this?" I was like, "Just the changes in Overkill if you want them." He's like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "I'm just gonna make some noise." I was like, "That works." Just
know that the double bass part breaks 3 fucking times in the song. Well, dude, I think this is a good ending point here.
Sure.
But one thing, so you're a family man, you have children, that's a whole different scope of life. That you're just responsible for all these other people and their development and their livelihood. And I really respect the fact that you're still doing this and at a high level.
Yeah, thanks. It's hard.
It's rewarding.
Oh, it's super rewarding, but you have to work for it.
You do. You do. So, a lot of people say that the legacy lives on through your children and stuff. I don't believe that. I mean, in a way, I'm not going to go on stage today and talk about my dad. I mean, I will to the right people, but
Sure,
what I mean? What in your mind, going through your whole life now, you're too close to it, but from my standpoint, we all kind of grow up the kind of people that we are. This is the dream, and it's been realized in many ways, even though we're not Motley Crue.
Right.
We have so much richness in our experience of heavy metal, and the fact of what guys like you and I have been able to do in a dying industry.
Totally.
And on our terms, in a way, more so you than me.
Well, the record industry's dying. I don't know about the concert industry.
Well, it's not. It's getting challenging.
That's a sidetrack
with the Live Nation thing and everything, corporatizing.
Yeah,
but what? at the end of the day, right? Like, it's it. The career's over. You're on. I don't want to say your deathbed. You're still
My death porch.
You're still conscious of everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you know that, like, when you're gone, you know, at least you have this to live
Right.
on. Like, how would you, so musically, how would you like to be remembered as? Like, not that you have a choice, but
Yeah, that's a hard question.
like, is it the whole catalog of music of everything you've done? Is it like, obviously, yes, that's a dumb question, but like, what would you like somebody to say about you? Like, as if, how would you like to be remembered?
Just that I was reliable. Just that I was honest.
That's so good, man.
Just a straight shooter.
That's it. That's
think-
good, man. I respect that.
Off the top of my head. I mean, I have a lifetime goal of writing 500 songs.
Really?
I've slowed down a lot.
What are you at? Where are you at right now?
Middle 300s.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, like finished songs that have
Yeah.
been
Oh, yeah.
produced and released. Yeah.
That's amazing.
I don't know if I'll hit it, honestly. Like I said, I've slowed down a lot through my 40s. In my 30s, I was on a tear.
Yeah.
And that's kind of when I decided I'm going to write 500 songs.
Yeah.
And now I'm not sure. But
I think you could do it.
But yeah, I think just being a straight shooter,
Yeah.
honest guy.
That's really.
That's what I'd like to be said about me.
That's really respectable.
Yeah.
And just like you talk about the relationship that you have with a business partner,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I think just in life in general, like your relationships with
It's a
people
good guideline, man.
are extremely, extremely important, you know. And, you know, I manage a handful of bands. I never wanted to be a manager. I just knew that it was the right thing for me to do for these bands because
Yeah.
I love them.
Sure, they're lucky to have you, man.
Yeah, thank you.
They are.
But I really just, when I deal with other managers and stuff, there's a lot of great ones, and there's a lot of ones that are just like, I don't know how or labels, you know, like,
Right.
like do you realize at the end of the day, like, this is art? Like,
Right,
like,
exactly.
Like, and this is, like, you have, being fair and honest with somebody that you work with is the best thing for you.
Yeah.
You know?
It's also the easiest. It's
right.
also, that's what I tell my kids. It's like, just tell the truth.
Yeah.
It's so simple.
Yeah.
Because you already know what the truth is.
Right.
And once you tell the truth, once you tell a lie,
Yeah.
then that's a whole, like, then you got to keep track of that and
know.
remember who
I
you told
know.
what to and
Yeah.
what, you know.
And having uncomfortable conversations and getting them out of the way is like, it's so liberating.
I know, it's such a relief.
It's like all that tension goes away with a puff of smoke and
Right.
not overthinking anything, and then realizing, hey, this did not go the way I thought. Like, this is actually, I'm glad this happened,
Yeah.
you know? So anyway, but dude,
yeah, take a chance, tell the truth.
yeah. No, I appreciate this. You're not
I do too.
you're not a very public guy. You know, you're not out there talking a lot about this stuff.
No, and I don't put myself out there maybe as much as I could, but when people come to me like with this kind of thing, I almost always say yes.
Okay. But I think people, especially our fans, like, they really need to know more about how you've done this, because it's remarkable, man.
Oh, maybe so,
it is.
thanks.
And the songwriting, like, we're done here, but let's get back to this. I just want to say, this is the most important thing that we didn't really cover. The songwriting, which it's incredible.
Well, thank you.
It's incredible. For fans of Iron Maiden and Pat Benatar, hey man, Pat Benatar fucking rocks. But like, no, really, I mean, it's just the melodic hooks, the heaviness, the harmonies, the speed, the non-speed.
Right.
Like, it's got all the elements that you could ask for in just it. High Spirits really does lift up your spirits. The band just, I don't know, it makes me feel good. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Good track.
Just another sunset on the point of no return. Gotta learn what makes our life
Hey guys, Nesbitt here. If you would like to support Night Demon and this podcast, the best way to do it is to become a Night Demon subscriber. Not only will you be doing your part to support a true heavy metal band out there really living it, you'll also gain access to a ton of extras. Bonus audio content, a subscriber-only merch store with rare items from the band's archives. You can stream never-before-heard demos and unearth live concerts from the live vaults. Communicate with the other Night Demon diehards on an exclusive subscriber forum, and gain early access to all press releases, album pre-orders, new merchandise, and a ton more. And another thing that I think is pretty cool is Night Demon will be donating 10% of every subscription fee to the Metal Cares Foundation, which is a charitable fund the band started in 2014 to aid those in our metal community. So head over to nightdemon.net/subscriber and join us as we make heavy metal history together as one. And on a side note, I'll personally think you're a grade A badass.
Thanks for listening to the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast. Head over to nightdemon.net, click on the subscriber tab, and sign up to access exclusive weekly bonus content. If you would like to donate to support the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast, you can do so through PayPal at paypal.me/nightdemonmetal. Additionally, if you have not already done so, please subscribe, like, rate, and review the show on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts.
All hail, Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast listeners. This is Dusty Squires chiming in to tell you about my brand new signature sticks from the London Drumstick Company. I've dreamt of having my very own drumsticks ever since I was a wee lad, and LDC made that a possibility for me. Founded in 2016 in London, England, the birthplace of heavy metal, the London Drumstick Company has trailblazed a path through the music industry and taken the drummer world by storm. When I met them for the first time, they knew their product was going to withstand the beatings of a Night Demon show. They took the time to work with me on getting everything just right. The balance and weight of my sticks are the same no matter what, and the durability is bar none the best I've ever had. I know my sticks will last through the set night after night. I'm truly honored to work with a company that caters to their players the way LDC does. Their innovation and attention to detail is what separates them from the rest of the stick makers out there. Their custom stick sleeves are unbelievable and really make the entire presentation complete. Wait until you see the design they came up with for me. It blew my mind and was a surprise to say the least. They have all kinds of amazing swag, including hoodies, t-shirts, drummer shorts, drum keys, stick bags, towels, face masks, practice pads, and much, much more. Even if you're not a drummer, you can be a part of Demon history and order my brand new signature sticks direct from their website. How cool is that? And to top it off, the London Drumstick Company are giving an exclusive offer to the Night Demon Heavy Metal Podcast listeners. Go to londondrumsticks.co.uk and receive a 15% store-wide discount using promo code DEMONSTICKS. All capital letters, no spaces, Demon Sticks. DEMONSTICKS. I can't thank everyone there enough for the opportunity to be a part of their family and for them trusting me with their amazing products. See you metal maniacs on the road very soon. And yes, the wood chips will be flying.
Greetings, boils and ghouls. This is your comrade, the Crypt Keeper here, reporting dead from the sanctuary of the strange. Tonight's macabre myth is a fright-filled feature, one overflowing with monsters, madness, and magic.
Visit our website at monstersmadnessandmagic.com. To stay up to date on all the dark dealings within the sanctuary of the strange, enjoy the show.
Hey Metalheads, I'm Mark and I host Metal Forge. Let me tell you about the show. The Metal Forge features the best underground metal from all over the world. We spend every week with a different artist with interviews, in-depth conversations, and most of all, the music. We also feature audience interactivity where you can submit your questions to the upcoming guests. New episodes are out every Friday at noon Eastern Time at metalforgeradio.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking Podcast, a non-genre based, all ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
Okay, metalheads, you've been complaining that there has not been a channel that plays all of the heavy metal videos from past, present, and future for years and years at this point. Well, that time is over. Heavy Metal Television is back. HeavyMetalTelevision.net is the website. Go there. You can see videos playing 24/7, 365, all the time, all the best from the old school, the new school, and everything in between. Check it out, HeavyMetalTelevision.net. It is where the metal is.